Okay, here we are at what Ken Ricard calls the Dragon's Den. And this boiler down here is the dragon. It's what burns the gas, circulates water, because it's an underfloor heating system, as you can see down here. This goes underneath the floor. All these pipes heat the floor. And then the pipes up above, a lot of them go to upper rooms and radiators, which each have a different thermostat. And all of the thermostats control these type of valves right here. Open and close. You can move this little lever here. Hear that going. That can manually open the valve to test things, but normally the thermostats open those valves. And here's another mess of them down here. And so what we also have is a couple of pumps, because what this boiler does is it basically just is a boiler that boils water, gets it hot down here, shuts off and on. And then there's a pump here that pumps water through the boiler and back out the other side over here. And that's all this does, is just continually circle water through all of this mass of pipes. So this thing has a relief valve here that just dumps water if the pressure gets too high. Pressure in this boiler is about 15 pounds, and it's regulated by this valve right here. Let me put a little more light on that. This valve here, and I just replaced that because it feeds domestic water into this boiler system down here. And to keep this level in this boiler, pressure up to 15 pounds, and that's read by this gauge here, which you can see is kind of short, and I'm going to replace. Over here is an expansion tank, and what this has is a rubber bellows in here that goes up and down, and it just takes excess pressure, because when this thing heats up and expands and contracts, pressure's going to change up and down. So it's, I don't know if you understand what hydraulic system is. Hydraulics is really powerful. It's water, fluids, compressed into a small space. It has a lot of power. It can bust open things. That's why this has a flexible thing, so any extra pressure doesn't burst everything. It just gives it some flex. So what we've done in the past is we've replaced these bleeds also, because what they do, see at the top of pipes, and like way up there you can see there's 3. Because what they do is bleed off extra air. Anytime there's any air in this system, the highest point is where the air will bleed out. So they just have a little valve on the top where you open it like 2 or 3 turns. It pisses air out here with a little sensor in there anytime there's any air. And even extra to that, there's what they call an air separator. Where is that? The air separator is here. That's a really fancy air bleeder that can really take the extra air and gurgle it around and squirt it out this here anytime we have extra air. And air is no good because the pump pumps water, circulates water, and that water needs to be pretty solid in there, otherwise you cavitate. Just trying to pump air, it just goes into like a vacuum on the suction side. So what we've got here today, I should explain this circulating valve, or mixing valve. What this does is with this pump here, it pumps more return water up into these pipes here and down and into the floor of the basement. So what that does is just choose how much more water you want for upstairs or downstairs. That just gives it a little more balance in the whole system. So I should explain this water strainer here. Filters the water coming in. What else have we got here? Well, that's basically it. Very simple system, eh? Does it look simple? Super simple. Look at all that. Oh, and by the way, the hot water is also heated by the boiler over here. Instead of having a flame inside or anything down here, it has these pipes and one of those valves off and on, shut-off valves again, on a thermostat, which flows hot boiler water in and out of this tank, which then is domestic water coming out the top. So they use the same boiler down here for everything. So what I've found today is this pump over here is not working. I've replaced, like I say, the fill valve over here. And I've replaced some of these valves before. They look newer over the years. And we've replaced bleed valves. And the pressure relief valve. Safety valve. Okay, so but the other day I found out that this pump is not working. You can hear when I turn on this switch, we get a pump working down here. It's working fine. But if we turn it off, we hear nothing. And this switch is on. See, this pump's not doing anything. This one. And I tested it for power. It's got power. Everything should be working, but it's not running at all. So we're going to attempt to change that. Over here we've got some tools all ready to go. We've got the extra pump here, the new pump. The new one, which looks something like this one. Which looks like it'll probably do the trick. Like this. Does that look anything like that? I think so. So, let's get to it. So as I said, we're going to replace this gauge down in here for the boiler. So in order to do that, we're going to close these valves, which I've just done. Close both the valves and on each side, and then shut off this water supply coming in so we don't get extra pressure. And we bleed off water for relief, just to bleed off the excess pressure, which is pretty quick. Okay, now we can go in and take this off, see if we can replace it with a new one. Okay, I took this off actually, hand turned it off, and found out that these two with the new one is a different fitting. The company that I got the parts from said this was the only one they had. I guess we'll have to search out a new one to get the right size. So we're going to have to leave that for today. We'll get this pump changed instead. Now in order to change this pump, we got to valve off both sides of it, and there's no valves on either side. So I am going to have to pull the whole pile of valves. When I went around turning off valves, I found in order to go follow each pipe back, I had to shut off all of these, that, up there, all the way back here. All of these different valves. Okay, after closing all the valves, I've got this thing unbolted, and I'm going to have to just wait it out as water drips down here, because the water up in this pipe has got to come out somehow. Hopefully there won't be too much. I can catch as much as possible in this bucket down here, and then get this thing changed. Looks like it's slowing down already. Well, there you go. I've got the old pump out. It's just dripping a little bit. We got some water here. We got pretty rusty looking fittings here. It might take a lot of work to get this thing to seal again. I think it's probably just flat there, so just clean it off flat and the rubber gasket should work. I think I've got these cleaned pretty good. They were really flat as I suspected, and I filed them off flat too, so I'm hoping the new gasket and rubber will seal really nice. There, we've got the pump bolted back in, nice and tight. Hopefully the flanges are even on both sides. Rubber is pretty forgiving, that's great. Now we're going to have to fill it up again, so what we got to do is we're going to open up this valve again, but we want the water to only come in from the bottom, so that it'll come up and rise up here, and I've got a bleed off right here. And what I can do is take this off and just let the air bleed out till I get water, and then I won't have much air left, because air is our enemy. Alright, I've taken this bleed right off. Now I want to fill this with water. Let's try just opening this. We have to allow some in. So from the bottom, we could try opening down here. And letting water in only one way here. Let's see if this works. We'll slowly add water. Here it going in slowly. Now when I get some water spitting out here, I'm probably getting air now. I can feel the pressure. Pops open. Once I get a little water up there, I'll know I'm pretty well full. And we'll just give it a few minutes to settle and then do it again. So I got the water gurgling once there. Let's try it again. And let's see if we get any more. Just slowly hear the water hissing in there. And there's the water bubbling out the top. Still air bubbles in it, so we'll do it a few more times and we'll let it settle. Okay, we've pretty well got all the water out. Every time I open this now, I just get water. So that's good. What we'll do now is get this thing wired up. Take off the cover here. No screws in it. So where's the screws? Oh yeah, there's a little bag here with screws in it for the cover. So we just got to run this wire up into the bottom and reconnect the way it was before. Right on. Alright, the wiring's done here. What I'm going to do now is just switch it on for a second to see if it actually makes any sound. We know it's running. Also, when it runs, it might push a little air out. So we can just do a little tiny bump and then get more air bleeding out of that bleeder over there. So we'll just turn on the switch. There you go, we got action. Now let's go bleed a little air off. Just use a cloth here to catch the wetness here. Yeah, there's some more air there. Just let that come out. There we go, solid water. Okay, so actually I don't think we got too much air in there. We bled most of it out. Air is our enemy. So we'll put this cap back on, and we already got all the valves open. So we'll restart it, see how she works, and bleed air once in a while. We've got the cover all back on. We'll start this pump. By the way, this is the return pump. The supply pump here will push all the water out into the zones and floor, whatever is required. And then this return pump sucks it back. So that's why you need this valve. We're going to set that back to where it was. We need that valve in order to suck more or less from the floor. And they seem to like that setting right about there. So we'll just go with that. All that really does is slow down the flow in the floor some. So we'll get back to you. Okay, let's start up the pump we just put in. Return pump. I can hear it flowing there, and I can hear water gurgling here and there. That's just the way it goes. Nothing you can much do about that, but just bleed it out a little bit at a time. Start up the other pump. That thing's bloody noisy. You can hear the boiler start up because there's a little flow switch in the pipes. And when it senses flow of water, it'll fire the boiler up. Engage a switch that allows it to fire if it's calling or if it's not hot enough already. Okay, the dragon's done. We're just going to go over all the valves, make sure everything's open, bleed some air, maybe shut the pumps off, bleed air once in a while, see if we can get it all cleaned up. Because you can hear there's gurgling going on, there's air in this still. Well, we're pretty well done here. I bleeded a lot of air off. I had the thing running pretty good, but I'm looking at this gauge again down here. And I see that there's actually a second fitting right there that can probably fit the gauge I got. So I'm just going to pull that out, plug it up with some paper, and go get that other gauge. Yay! And there you go. The new Hvac gauge went in just fine. Now, isn't that nice and big and pretty now? You can read the temperature and the pressure on these things. And that will conclude the lesson for today.